Let's turn our attention to, a major event. Well, if you were on social media yesterday, hugest event yesterday. No, forget coronavirus and people dying across the board. No, it's International Women's Day. Huge event for many people on Twitter who like to particularly sort of, pontificate about women and our place in this world. Among the sort of tweets that we did see over yesterday were tweets from, for instance, the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, who for some reason felt the need to tweet out an awful lot of nonsense yesterday. Believe women, respect women, promote women, trust women, and then the hashtag International Women's Day. Let's talk about this with Kate Andrews. It's economics correspondent at The Spectator and joins us now. Good morning to you, Kate.
Good morning.
Were you doing much for fun for International Women's Day yesterday?
Well, I wrote a blog about it because, women going to work is an important way to celebrate International Women's Day.
Because I genuinely only go for festivals that involve fireworks or chocolate, and it didn't seem to involve either, so I didn't really want to play. Although I am speaking...
Maybe a glass of wine.
If there's wine, I'll go along if there's Sancerre. I am speaking at an event at work today, and I'm sure I'm going to make all the women cross, because I, like you, share the terrible affliction of not being entirely convinced that we need an International Women's Day, certainly National Women's Day here in the UK. I'm not entirely sure that this playing out of women as perpetual victims is really where we want to be.
Sure. I mean, the problem with International Anything Day is that the experiences of someone in the UK, someone in England, someone in a local village are going to be very different from what your neighbors are experiencing, certainly people around the world and on different continents. And, I think I could get behind an International Women's Day that used the opportunity to celebrate the achievements of women and really look to areas of the world where we haven't come very far yet, to, use that moment to highlight why we should be dedicating time and resources to helping women all over the world who still don't even have their basic rights in place. But unfortunately, in the UK, we tend to live in a bubble on days like this. And, the leading article on the BBC News website was not about the marches happening in Mexico against gender-based violence, which is actually on the rise in Mexico, which took place yesterday. It was about Meghan Markle speaking to school children. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfectly nice story, isn't it? But it really brings into context the extent to which we act as if certain things are problems in the UK that perhaps people all over the world would be quite happy to be here.
Well, exactly. And also, I've got to be honest, I do find it difficult when people put up Meghan Markle as an icon of feminism. I mean, she's a woman. She married a rich prince and gave up her job. I mean, I'm sorry if I struggle with the idea that this is the epitome of feminist achievement, but there we are. But this is the thing. There's a very big difference between talking about how huge numbers of women, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of women are still subjugated in many countries in the Middle East, where, don't have the vote, don't have equal rights, women forced to wear a veil, women forced to wear burqas, women who aren't allowed to divorce their husbands, who don't have a chance of getting custody of their children, women who aren't allowed to do certain jobs, girls who were aborted because they're female fetuses in countries like China and India, but where girls are not valued the same. I mean, there are huge issues in terms of access to education in large number of countries in Africa. Those are issues to talk about. But when we talk about, women don't get paid, equal pay in the UK, or women are going to be... yesterday was a big eco demonstration, load of women taking their bras off for no good reason in the freezing cold on Waterloo Bridge because they were saying that women are going to be more affected by climate change than men. I'm surely most women and men listening to this, and they just sort of shake their heads and just think, these people are all mad.
Well, I think that there's you take that with a big teaspoon of salt, don't you? Because I think most women, if they are going to work, if they are operating in the workforce, they don't believe that conditions are worse for us today than they were for women in the 1950s and 60s working as secretaries and assistants. And if you believe, say, the study that the TUC brought out leading up to International Women's Day, suggesting that women work for 2 months for free, you'd really have to start to believe that things are just as bad or worse now as they were decades ago. And I think that grates on people. And there was doing the rounds yesterday an article about the online gap between women and men because there are fewer female Wikipedia editors.
God,
and I mean that may well be interesting to some people, but on International Women's Day, even if you don't want to look at what's happening around the world and you want to look closer to home, talk about the female refugee detention centres, where there's still some horrendous things that go on there. Talk about abortion rights in Northern Ireland. Don't talk about online editors, because, as you say, it just turns people off.
But also confusing things where there are clear barriers, where there are legal barriers to women, or massive economic barriers to women. Say, girls going to school. If you're poor and you only educate two of your kids, you're going to educate the boys, not the girls, in a poor country where women can't get access, you say, to proper healthcare, contraception, abortion. Hey, look at America for this. But that's very different from the choices women make about, for instance, what they study at school, what they study at university, what they study, what jobs they choose to go into, and how they choose to spend their leisure time, whether it's on Wikipedia or whether it's, I don't know, cleaning their house and looking after their kids. There does seem to be an awful lot of this idea constantly that women are somehow victims and women are sort of being forced to do things. I mean, I go many, many, many weeks in my daily life before I come across any female victims.
Well, exactly. And I think that this idea of perpetuating victimhood is something that actually we don't just experience on International Women's Day. We experience it every day, because everywhere you turn, people are telling you that you're not paid as much, you're not going to be promoted, you're not going to be taken seriously.
We're going to be sexually harassed, we're going to be raped, we're going to be beaten by our partners, we're doing too much housework, we're forced to stay at home and look after our kids, apparently.
Well, the evidence certainly on the work side just doesn't pan out. And again, I think if you do want to talk about the more serious issues like rape and domestic violence, you have to do so in a very serious way that sticks to the evidence. It's very important not to fearmonger, but it's also very important to highlight where this is happening. And again, I just didn't see loads of that yesterday. And I think that if you are going to have an International Women's Day, there is also an International Men's Day. If you're going to highlight the issues for the sexes, then you should highlight the genuine issues that still really do plague women in the UK and around the world. And I think I get frustrated when people sort of over-exaggerate or distract from those real issues, and they over-exaggerate other issues that perhaps their lobbying group or their efforts want us to focus on, but it's not actually what really matters to women.
Yeah, indeed. The Kate Andrews, always talking sense, economics correspondent at The Spectator.